And good morning. How we doing? How's it going, everybody? Right. Let's have a look. Mech is for how you doing, Mech? Good to see you. Dorito, hello. Hi, have you heard of the guitarist Ben Higgins? I have, but only vaguely. He's from England. He has an instructional course online. No, never heard of him. Well, I have heard of him, but I haven't heard him play or anything like that. Cool. Right. Forgive me. I'm waking up here. So today, right, I've left one of the lights switched off intentionally. I'm going for a slightly more darker, moodier look. What do you think? Or do you think I should switch the other light on? And so, hi Tim, can't stay long. Unfortunately, I'm playing the hybrid picking book again. How long did it take you to get through it? Where it was solid under the fingers, and did you retain any good amount of it? Oh, that's interesting, the memory thing, because I have to keep going back and kind of going through the exercises. Basically, I had a week going through it every day. There was like exercises, which really helped. So I did up to these two fingers. I didn't bother with the little pinky. And then basically what I was doing is I was just reminding myself of the exercises, picking a couple of exercises to remember, and then playing them through the day as micro practices. And then what I would do is I would just force myself that I had to play. I couldn't do any upstrokes. I had to use a hybrid. So that's what I did. It's a tricky one, but eventually get there. And I think if I tried to think of one thing that got that hybrid picking going, I think it was just saying, right, that is it. I'm just like no upstrokes. I've just got to use my finger to get about the fretboard. And that's how I did it. Hybrid pickings, like one of the things that's really tricky about it is you're using your finger, and the material of your finger tends to change during the day. Like, so it's not so bad now, but what I would find is I would have to hybrid pick for like ages to get the tone into it. But like now the tone pretty much gets there. I remember Brett talking about one of his friends like having to play for like, an hour before the tone actually would come in. And sometimes that'll change. Like if it's hot weather or I've had a sweaty hand, then the skin softens a bit and the tone changes and it's a little bit more harder work. So there's a few variables there that you get that you don't get with the pick. I mean, a pick's just plastic and it's like constant, isn't it? It's not, the material's not kind of changing in any organic way, whereas hybrid picking is. So that's like a factor to take into consideration, I think. But that book's the best, and I think the exercises that helped the most in there were the really odd sort of hybrid picking things, like where the picks you're doing upstrokes in a hybrid pick, so like stuff where you're working against the muscles is like really, really good. So there's a few of those exercises. In fact, the ones that are triplets are really good. Like when you do the fifth and the fourths, and you just go. Didn't bother with the studies really. Brief look at those, but it was all just the exercises, the mechanics, absolutely brilliant. Right. So that's Enzo. WC, great. What tips do you have for sweep pick? Oh God, right. I'll tell you what, we'll do a lesson. Hybrid picking and sweeping tomorrow. How about that? Good morning, Sean. Good day, Tim. I think I've already done that. Right. And then so using Guitar Pro with it, and it helps greatly. By the way, Brett Costa has a free class. I've enrolled, of course. Yeah, I've signed up for it, Enzo. I did that straight away, actually, when you sent me a message. So, which is actually, me signing up for that, and that's part of what we're talking about. Right. So the lighting. What do you think of the lighting? I've taken one light out. I mean, I can switch it back on, but I've gone for the slightly moodier YouTube lighting. And the reason I've done that is I thought it'd be more therapeutic for everybody, because we've got a little bit to cover today. As you know, we are focusing on habits this month, and we've had the big sort of throw of habits, and I'm hoping, and the reason actually that we did habits first is because, if I did environment, it would either be, focus, habits, environment, right, would be the three things, right? And you could start potentially with any one of those. But habits is the best one because you're going to have to do something to create the habit, right? And if, say, environmentally your room isn't like set up, then there'll be barriers that will get in the way of the habits. And we want that data. So when we get to environment, you can start modifying that to actually serve what it is you're doing. And none of us will have a perfect environment for what we're doing, okay? It's just, it's a constant changing thing. But we can get the main throw of it together, so we can make our lives easy. And I think it's amazing to me, like, how many little things we'll overlook, like not having the guitar in the right place, or, we'll just put up with that. But so, like, habits is first because we need to make a minimum viable commitment. And I hope everybody who was here last week and everybody who's watched this has all now got a minimum viable commitment. If you want to share what that is in the chat, I would love to know. If not, fine, it's okay. But minimum viable commitment is very, very important, because that's the amount of time that you can spend every day to do whatever it is you're going to do. All right, whether it's playing guitar, writing music, writing a book, working on a business, minimum viable commitment is what you can do. And one thing that's great about it is, if the number's low, then there's always time to do something to work on your project. That's pretty much sums up why I think it's like such a great thing. So I looked through the slides that I had given us the overview of what we're doing, and I thought, and I picked something out from there just to like elaborate on. And what actually came up that I thought we should look at next is naive, purposeful, deliberate practice, okay, and what that is. So I went through, got the main points of the book Peak, and we're going to work through that today, and we're going to try and kind of apply it to our situation. Looks dim, but cool, right? Okay. Beauty lighting. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Pythagoras used to lecture his students from behind the curtain. And the reason he did that was so they wouldn't be distracted by his body language. He didn't want any of the non-verbal communication in there, simply because he wanted them to focus completely on the spoken word of what he was saying. And it's quite interesting, actually, like when I think about that, because there's a whole genre of music, the acousmatic, which I was into when I was a student doing my master's. And that was all about playing music in a black room, dark room, completely dark, and allowing people to only focus on the sound and not be distracted by the visual. Anyway. Have you ever used the platform Discord? Do you like it? Right, I have got Discord. There is a Discord. If you go to the About on this channel, there's a link. I'm sure it's working. And you can join my Discord. I literally have a guitar combo practice amp in my bedroom, living room, and other rooms too. That's good. Yay, Perplexity, how you doing? So dual cast. Love the look, Tim. And a side note, didn't get to hear the breakdown of your first. Didn't get to hear the breakdown your first multi-scale string. Yeah, so there was a live with me and Thomas, and I played 3 guitars. I was the stunt guy, and yes, I played the 7-string multi-scale, followed by the extreme opposite of Strandberg, and then back onto my regular guitar. It was a very weird experience, to be fair. So I was just expecting to play the 7-string all night. But I retreated to my regular guitar after that. It was good. So if you watch the last live, and we'll be live this week as well, because I think it's Easter Saturday. I think we'll be live. I better check. But it's the competition results, isn't it? It's going to be a long one. I remember that was the reason you played the Strandberg, but playing the Strandberg, I didn't look happy. Because it was weird, it's stressful. You're thinking you're going to go into a situation shredding in comfort, and then you're like, I didn't plan for this, but it's a laugh, so we're going to have to do it, because, you know, it's going to be a fun experience, you know? I have an Ibanez RG. I've got an RG in the loft. ESP H100 jack dinky. I use all my Chapman ML1 modern. Oh, you're well kitted out. Have you ever played Chapman guitars from the... No, never. You did it wonderfully. Or you didn't wonderfully. Oh, that's what I mean. That's good. I knew that's what you mean. Right, okay, so let's start with the what it was I was meant to be doing, which is the lecture, and it is a lecture. So everybody sitting comfortably. And remember, this is all very important stuff. And please do more thumbs up in the channel. Because believe it or not, doing these, like, this is me. When we're talking about deliberate practice, this is me out of my comfort zone, in a way. This is like, I'm definitely in the 4 to 7% doing this, but I know that talking in front of a camera, doing these slides when I haven't really practiced them or anything like that, or really like edited them properly, just diving in, puts me into my, it puts me a bit out of my comfort zone. So while you're watching this, remember, I too am also practicing. How about that? We're all practicing. And practicing never really stops. We're always going to be doing it forever. So anybody want to ask anything in the chat at any point, feel free to. I would prefer the interaction, because at least I know where everybody is in their headspace about this. So deliberate practice for musicians, based on Peak by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. There we go. I've now got the authors. And hold on. Let's go. So, introduction, right? Peak by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole presents a science of expertise. Anders Ericsson, world's leading expert on expert performances. See, this is right up our street, isn't it? The book distinguishes between naive, purposeful, deliberate practice. And today's focus is applying on these concepts on musical development. There we go. Roughly. All right, so we're going to start with naive practice. So we've got sort of like an anchor really to what we're doing. And I think naive practice is definitely the thing we all do, and without even thinking, okay? I'm not saying at any point, because what I don't want to do is take the enjoyment of the instrument away from everybody, saying that like everything has to be measurable and everything has to have a reason, or you shouldn't be doing it, right? That like just picking up and playing and enjoying like is super important, okay? Because these are the things that the experiences that keep us coming back to the instrument. So that's a very important thing to think about. When you don't want to do something, a lot of it's because you didn't have a very good experience of doing it, and human nature subconsciously will be like, well, I don't want to do that, you know, I've got like other things to do, or you're procrastinating and the feeling's not there. So actually, naive practice is quite a good thing, really, in a way, just not all the time. So, as defined in Peak, simply doing something repeatedly, expecting the repetitions alone to lead to improvement, and characterized by comfort zone practice and lacks specific goals. Now, I tend to lump in the naive practice into the purposeful practice, just so you know. And playing pieces repeatedly, and the reason I do that is because I think it's something that we always do, even when we're not supposed to do it, although it's still a positive thing. It's characterized by comfort zone practice and lacks specific goals. So when we're in the comfort zone, we're not really practicing, are we? We're not going to make any gains. So that's like one of the main problems of it. However, being in the comfort zone, it's just nice to see what facility that we have for playing, okay? And feel good about ourselves. So on the positive side, that's a good thing. Playing pieces repeatedly, practicing without focus, and avoiding hard parts and undefined sessions. So just picking it up and just playing, all right? If we want to make serious gains, okay, we don't want to be doing this all the time. And if we do it badly, and we're just doing that all the time, and we're not focusing in on problems, and we're making mistakes all the time, technically you're practicing those problems, so you could technically hurt your playing. Purposeful practice, a step forward, right? So this next bit is the key characters. So we've got specific goals. So we'll have some goals there. We'll focus on certain bits, immediate feedback, and outside of the comfort zone. So Peak doesn't tell you the percentages of being outside the comfort zone. So when I say 4 to 7%, always remember that that's from like Stephen Kotler, Csikszentmihalyi, which I can't pronounce his name. Chickson, we'll call him. That's where that's coming from, and that's based on the book Rise of Superman, and I can't remember what the Csikszentmihalyi one is, but it's from those two books that those guys did. Csikszentmihalyi tends to be the one that's referenced the most in papers, though. I tend to see his stuff come up quite a bit. In fact, I just like at work, I read like a paper where he was quite heavily referenced in it. So any of those guys, when you're interested in flow, is a great place to start. But conditions of being in flow are that you are outside of your comfort zone. But the only way to do that successfully, so you are in flow and engaged in your practice, is to make sure that you aren't so outside of your comfort zone that you're overwhelmed. And basically, you don't want to be then into the naive practice where basically there isn't a particular goal and you're playing within your comfort zone. What will happen is that's when you feel like you're spinning your wheels, you're not really getting anywhere, and then you just kind of give up and don't know how to practice and stuff. So we'll have to make sure that always be mindful of the skill to challenge ratio, and make sure you don't overwhelm yourself and you don't make it too easy, because you'll just either way you're going to disengage, okay? You just need to make things just slightly out of that range. Immediate focus, immediate feedback is really, really important. So think about ways you can get immediate feedback. Now, one way to do it, right, for me, it might not be for everybody, but, double extra feedback is what I'm doing now. Coming on alive and bearing all naked to the world and playing, because you're playing under the conditions of connecting to the world, so other people are watching you. And that's a good sort of benchmark of where you're at with your playing. So you can tend to work out exactly where you're at with that, and then you can work out where you need to improve. It doesn't have to be in front of people, because of performance, you're not going to go back and practice bits. But what you can do is you can start videoing yourself or practicing with a camera, which I do find very, very beneficial. And then if you really want to get into the hard reality of it, you can get yourself one of these, horseshoe, put your phone in it, and that'll magnify your picking hand. And then you'll be able to kind of see in detail what's going on, because the more information you're getting, the more you're going to be able to come up with ideas and ways of course correcting. So that's, like an important thing. I think videoing is like really, really good, And always have some sort of specific goals. Always be like kind of aiming for something. So for musicians, like I've said, you're going to have to set some sort of objectives. You're going to need full concentration. So that means we're in flow, doesn't it? So to concentrate, to focus, we need to remove distractions. Yeah. So think about things that distract you. I mean, we'll talk about guitar playing, right? And well, actually, no, we'll talk about producing and guitar playing. So guitarists, we have lots of equipment, pedals and things like that. I would say just make sure you have your practice tone set up. I mean, I have a patch and it's called practice. That's it. And I put that on and that's what I practice with. Some of my practice is practice with distortion, because I do a lot of legato. So I have to practice with the sound I'm using, simply because you're doing the legato, but you're also practicing your noise control, your muting of strings and things like that. So you need to do that to get the tolerance right. You need to like kind of work with the sound that you'll be playing in front of people. But think about all the things, like the things that are in your way. You just want one amp, plug in, and off you go, and a guitar that's within reach, that isn't in a case, preferably. For producers, you need to be thinking about your template, right? Do you need all the plugins that you've got in your template now? If you haven't got a template and you're kind of then having to make decisions of what plugins you're going to use to do something, it's different every time. You're not practicing, you're just using different plugins, hoping that the results are going to miraculously appear, and that isn't going to happen. The only way that you'll ever overcome that is to pick like one EQ and get used to using it, under pressure, speed, and that's how you get better. Because as soon as you stop introducing another plugin, it's another thing to master. So your bandwidth of mastery halves every time. So if there's like 3 EQs, right, that you're going to use, then it's 3 times less that you'll achieve mastery, if you see what I mean. So you notice my template, like I just have, but that's because I'll make the patch live, almost like a performance. I just have simple slider synths, and I love the SH101. I use that because it's fun, it's good. And the limitations of that, the Juno, the limitations of those synths is good, because it gets you to think outside the box and gets you to squeeze as much juice out of those synths as you can. And a lot of the things you'll come up with like really interesting stuff. And again, it's that road to mastery, isn't it? It's more likely that you'll get that from using like one synth. So concentration, that's an important one. We want to remove distractions. And you want to be, like your phone as well, like stick that somewhere out of the way. Or like with me, and I think I'll have to check it, but I have all the notifications switched off. I only have my messages on and the phone, and I think that should be about it. There are no other notifications on there, simply because I don't want my phone dictating to me when it's going to get my attention. You know, I'll look at it when I can. Because the problem is, and there's been, you know, studies on this. When you like basically notified, say by your phone, there's a message or an email there, and you respond to it, it causes a fight or flight response. And that takes energy away from you, and it takes your focus away. There was a study in an office where if people did answered an email whilst they're in flow, and then they kind of stopped, answered an email, and that took 5 minutes to do, that 5 minutes to read and respond to an email then cost round about 25 minutes of distraction and crap work to actually get back into where they were flow. So you're losing by that response about half an hour of every hour by doing that. So bear that in mind, kind of move all of that out of the way, because we want to be fully concentrating to allow our brains to absorb all the things that we're trying to teach it, you know. So it's important. Record feedback, we talked about that, didn't we? And challenge yourself. So do keep coming up with challenges. I mean, one problem, well, you'll see what the problem is with this, with the limitations of purposeful practice, okay? Right, so purposeful practice is directed, it's self-directed and without guidance. Plateaus are hard to overcome, and it lacks best methods from the field. May not develop mental representations. So basically, you're out on a limb. You're on your own when you're doing this, and you will get gains, and it will work. But as I say, the plateau thing is a really, really hard thing to kind of overcome. So we're going to talk about kind of getting over that, because even now, you know, I experience plateaus, and I find it really depressing when it happens. I do, honestly. But I know when I'm hitting it, and I have various coping strategies to quickly come out of it. I'm just going to check the chat. I'll tell you what, I'll just, because I don't want to ignore anybody here. This lecture is definitely going to be a concept for all guitarists to improve and progress effectively with joy as well. Absolutely, because we don't want to, you know, a lot of my job as a coach is just to take the pain away that's unnecessary, you know, and then it allows you to focus on the things that really, really matter, that's going to make you progress. Enzo writes a lot. That wasn't supposed to be sent. Never mind. I quit wearing my watch because I hated the disruption. Do not buy a watch, anyone here. So there's an interesting one, yeah. So there's like the watch thing. You removed it. Situation improved. I like it. Deliberate practice, the gold standard. What do I reckon of that? The gold standard. Okay, definition. Purposeful practice knows where it's going and how to get there. So the key elements here are to establish training techniques. You're going to be outside your comfort zone. There's going to be specific goals. Full effort will be made to stay focused and like on topic. Feedback and adjustments, very important. Mental representations, and build on skills. Basically, to me, deliberate practice is just a much more measured form of purposeful practice, but we do have the inbuilt part of it where we've got much more robust ways of evaluating what we're doing. Okay, and I'll give you a couple. So why deliberate practice is different? Deliberate practice uses expert teachers and developed methods, right? So this is really important, okay? Because I think, like, at times with me, I haven't gone to a teacher because my ego has got in the way. Because I'm like, well, I should know better. I've been doing this all my life, and I used to have tons of teachers. But as we know, as adults, it's a lifelong learning mission, music, yeah? Time is of the premium, especially if you're busy like me and you've got kids and you've got like other stuff going on, other things you need to do in your life. Maybe your job isn't like music, and then you've got limited time, but you really want to make that kind of progress. Then deliberate practice is definitely the thing that you want to be completely focused on, because you need to make the most of your time. But the other part of that is a time-saving thing, right? Is just to get a teacher in. So if you're stuck on something and you're in your own head, searching YouTube, all these things, get to the teacher that you think's got those skills, okay? And get them to take you through, because what you get, and we mentioned feedback, is you get that constant feedback from a professional that's going to help you course correct, because they can see other things that you necessarily can't see. So that's really, really important. So you need to get yourself a teacher, preferably one that you trust, or one that has got the skills that you realistically want to acquire. The same goes for coaching as well. So I've done both. If I'm stuck, it's no big secret that I've been to Rick Graham before in the past. Why? Because I'm sitting here figuring something out and thinking, well, why waste my time, right, practicing various methods when I can just get a teacher to help me choose which method is going to have the most benefit, And that's what I did, and it saved me loads of time. It gave me that confidence. It gave me a direction to move in where I felt it would take me less time, and it did, and it saved me time. I mean, how much is that worth? Okay, so joining coaching group. If you're struggling making music, you can't get it dialed in, all that kind of thing. Joining a coaching group, that's here. Do that. If you're wanting guitar lessons, you can sign up for guitar lessons. If you're just wanting one-to-one coaching, then you can do that. There's plenty of options here for you to do that outside of these lives. Having said that, we do have the chat, and I don't mind sitting here and helping where I can. So, teachers, that's going to say it's think like, is it my ego? Is that why I'm not going to the teacher? I know finances could be a problem, but still, it's going to save you money, okay, and time. And time's really of a premium, so that's really important. I think the other thing is we get tempted with shiny things, don't we? And, shall I get a teacher? Shall I learn something? Or shall I buy a guitar? And a lot of times I know the guitar can win, and then you get it, but further forward. Really, the thing that we want to invest in, right, more than any piece of gear, it's always 100% you want to be investing on the inner game. You want to be investing on developing yourself as a musician. You are the product. You are the most sophisticated, expensive gear, right? And you can clag on as many other bits of like technology, guitars and stuff like that. You're still going to be in the same situation. So obviously there are deliberate practice, talking about, classical music, 250 plus years of practice. Techniques are there as well. So, you're using all this wealth of knowledge. And it develops and refines mental representation. So remember what I talk about, the sort of mental models that we have in a book like The Inner Game of Music. Again, I have to really recommend that book, because it's another time-saving thing, isn't it? This being able to distinguish between self 1 and self 2, and being able to get into self 2 when you're practicing, again, is going to ensure that 10 minutes practice, or whatever your minimum viable commitment is, if you get into the flow and it's feeling okay, the time's dilating, chances are you're going to be developing more within that time, and you're going to be enjoying it a lot more. Let us move on. Right. The other thing is, was there a measurement thing there? Hold on. So the other thing we'll talk about as well is how you can actually how you can actually track your progress as well, because that's going to be a really important thing. So when we're talking about kind of reviewing what you're doing, as I say, videoing yourself is really, really good. But I always do wins, problems, and opportunities. That's the best one. So after have a diary, okay, write it down or type it down, okay, but simply just, even if you don't read it back, this will prime your brain for the rest of the day, okay, thinking about the things that you have to overcome and solutions and what have you. But I always write after practice sessions, most practice sessions, not all the practice sessions, but most practice sessions, if I'm really into it, it's everyone. Every live I do, sort of every studio session I do, lives with Thomas, what I'll do is I'll write wins, problems, and opportunities. Wins are very, very important, okay? We write down the wins because we want to feel good about ourselves. Chances are, when we're practicing guitar, right, we're going to be practicing something that we can't do. So we're dealing with problems. It's kind of like a bit of a negative vibe in a way. I know we're trying to make progress, but sometimes we can just feel like we're failing all the time. But even out of a negative, there is a positive, isn't it? You're turning up and you're trying to make progress. And, you know, I want you all to think in practice sessions, right, what are the positive outcomes, even if it's very, very small. Okay, it doesn't matter because we're just priming your brain, okay, to enjoy these practice sessions, to know that it's progress, to know that this is like how we do things as a professional musician. Then we have problems. Now, as human beings, we love problems are no, like I'll coach people, right, and I'll say, right, what's been working? And they start talking about problems, like straight into the problems, and they might start having random solutions coming in. And I'm like, hold on a minute, I've asked you what the wins were, you know, and I won't move from a coaching session till I've had some wins and I'm satisfied because it's important. Problems, we'll have no problems with problems, okay? Like problems just pour out of us, and this is good. Just write all the problems down. But one thing's for sure, when we come to the opportunities, every problem has an opportunity. Why is a problem an opportunity? Well, David Deutsch, the physicist, philosopher, who inspires a lot of this work, basically, solving a problem is how we create new knowledge. So these problems are very, very important. They're not to be avoided, they're to be explored with potential opportunities. And when I do this, I get excited. I want to get back to my new session. I want to get back to it because I've got all these other ideas, especially when it's like music production writing. I come back and I've got all these other ideas and I just literally can't wait to get in the room and start trying them all out to see what works, you know? Right. I'll come back to the chat in a minute. You're talking about watches. So mental representations, core of expert performance. Okay, so we want to be in self too. We want to be in the performance self. Activity specific. So we want to make sure that we're setting very, very clear goals all the time. So that's why I like micro practices, because they're easy to kind of get together. And what Enzo was saying actually before, he was talking about this book, because I've got my book library down there, you see. So Enzo's talking about this book. Now, what's great about this book is it's very much based about deliberate practice. So you'll have like the first exercise there, and it's just a line. This is how this book works. It gives you one exercise, and then if you want to do the etude, it does based on that exercise. And it's absolutely just the best way to learn the technique. and it's broken down into small chunks. And that would be, your micro practice. That's very much deliberate practice, very measured. And you do that exercise, and then you move on, and the challenge gets slightly harder as you go up, but within your comfort zone. So also, experts see patterns. So I definitely am acutely aware of, basically when I'm at peak and when I start dropping down the other side, and I start bringing in sort of measures to counteract that. I think one interesting thing, I've got my pen, and I'll do one of my very scientific diagrams. So that wavy line is sort of like how I perceive my progress, okay? So I'll start here, and basically I'll get to peak, and then I'll drop down the other side, okay? But what actually happens if we take this bottom line, when we look here, my kind of, best day here when I first started playing and felt great is basically my worst day at the top of the scale here. So I'm aware of this practice. Even though it feels like we can hardly play, and like times I'm like, how do I even play anything? When I'm down in this slump, it's not like the truth. We often, I'll feel like that, but then I'll watch solos back that I've played live, and I think actually that's all right. And I was feeling pretty much crap. So be aware of that. I think we spend too much time focusing on sort of when we're at peak performance, enjoying that, which is great. But where we're really going to learn is when we're in these ruts, because that's when we've got to bring in strategies. That's when we've got to start thinking about, well, I'm in this rut. Is it because I'm bored? Do I need to learn new things, new practice? We've got to think about that. So what I tend to do when I'm in a rut is I'll start looking for new things to play, and that's really how you expand. So when I'm in the rut, I just go, I'm in the rut, I treat myself as a beginner, and I start something new. And then sure enough, by doing that, I very, very quickly kind of get up to the peak. But it's being aware of that, and then actually having the effort to learn something new, because sometimes, because we're learning something new, there's always that, part of it where we're almost going out into the unknown. Although practicing and learning an instrument has a fair amount of certainty to it, there's still a little bit of uncertainty. And that little bit of uncertainty can make us just go back to naive practice and go, I just want to play something and feel comfortable. I don't want to face the issues. And that tends to not help. So really getting out of a rut, learn something new is the best way, I think. So for musicians, it's, understanding the structure, anticipate technique efforts, and perceiving subtle quality differences. So, applying deliberate practice. So we've got, find a teacher, save time, get a coach. Can't just that solves the problems loads. Still got to do the work though. Using the 3 F's: focus, feedback, and fix it. So focus, obviously we talked about that. You want to have a nice focused time to do all of your deliberate practice. You don't want to kind of do half distracted practice, talking to the missus and stuff like that, doing a few exercises while she's telling you what a load of jobs that you're going to do, and you're drifting off and trying to do a picking exercise. We don't want to be doing that. That doesn't count as practice. We're talking about proper me time, right? Where you sit in a nice quiet room and you do this practice. That's really important, okay? It's got to be laboratory conditions if we can get it. We've talked about feedback, so using a camera. And in the book Peak, it talks about, when the Americans were training Top Gun pilots in the Vietnam War, they used nose cameras on their aeroplanes. They did exercises, they videoed everything. They would go back, watch the videos, and then they would course correct on what they were supposed to be doing, come up with new tactics, and basically run that experiment again, and then collect the data, and they'll just do that, and they rapidly evolve. So kind of using a camera so you can see your technique, and recording is a great way of getting feedback. It's, recording solos, recording yourself, all of that. I mean, you'll hear guitarists saying this time and time again. I was watching a thing by Jack Gardner. That's what he was saying, videoing and recording yourself. And then fixing it. Now, the indie gamer music's really interesting for this because when we're kind of playing something and we know there's a problem there, we do need to be able to diagnose exactly where the problem is. And I think part of that is we have to sort of remove ourselves. So in the indie gamer music, it tells you that when you're playing, to observe what you're doing, almost like a third person. You're observing. And actually, when you do that, a lot of the problems just kind of your body fixes them. It's really weird. But it also, if there really is a problem, that problem will come up and you'll be able to objectively see it, because we want to see what the problem is before we start fixing it. What we don't want to do is every time the problem arises, think to ourselves, I'm going to try harder, because immediately we're sort of out of flow at that point and we're starting to try and analytically think of something while we're playing, and we can actually get into more troubles. We can continue practicing the wrong thing. So what we do need to do is acknowledge where the problem is, and then isolate it, and then break it down, and then work out what mechanics will fix it. And then pushing beyond plateaus. So this is the thing, is we do want to really have, think about the long game of like where we want to be, with our playing. So, I mean, for me this year, there's a lot of things that I want to do with my guitar playing. And I'm constantly kind of pushing kind of towards that. So there is a bigger picture. I've definitely, for this year, I'm doubling down on it. Like last year was really good. And sort of beginning of this year, there was like a lot of progress made, and I'm keeping going with that because I'm enjoying it. Okay, designing practice, purposeful practice without a teacher, set goals, focus intensely, immediate feedback, leave the comfort zone, moving towards deliberate practice, find a teacher, study masters, target weakness, measure progress. Okay. And the mindset is discomfort equals growth, okay? But it's got to be discomfort in the areas that we need. We just don't want to feel uncomfortable, all right? Plateaus are normal, and rest matters. Interesting, because I don't get a rest. I just have to keep going. That's it. So, misconceptions addressed. So in Peak, right, there is the 1,000-hour rule thing, which was misinterpreted by Gladwell. The quality of practice matters more. That's what you've got to remember. Okay, so it's not like, forget the 10,000 hours thing, right? Because I could do 10,000 hours of naive practice and not make any progress. Okay, it's basically, the frequency and how you practice. And this gets you onto natural talent, right? I know, like, some people go, I'm just not naturally talented, I can't do it, right? But, like, when you're a professional musician, right, or you progress on your instrument at a certain point, the natural talent goes out of the window. It's only like something maybe kids have, like they're starting to get lucky, and he's naturally talented. But when everybody's practicing, they don't really see the natural talent. It's all down to basically the quality of practice, how long you're practicing for, or at least how often you practice for, and the methods in which you practice. So if you're going to do deliberate practice all the time, right, and it's targeted, you're going to get a lot better than somebody who's just doing purposeful practice or naive practice. It's just a matter of fact, okay? So yes, natural talent is overrated. So it is about training and reps, and better practice equals better performance. Now, we definitely know now what better practice is. And everything you can do here, at the end of the day, everything that we do here, we can apply on our instruments, and we can apply to our music making in the studio, because the studio environment, even if you're mixing a track, okay, when you're producing a track, I know we're in front of a computer and it feels more like an office, right? But they are instruments. Your laptop becomes an instrument. It's just the same thing. It's just we can practice, and we can use all of this towards that. When I first became aware of Peak, quite a while now, I was using it to produce dance music. That's what I was doing. Like, all of this practice wasn't used really on an instrument. It was to do with developing myself as an artist. And it was actually, it's absolutely invaluable. And then Peak again, resurfaced when I started then playing guitar with McLaughlin Hutch. I needed to get good quick. So one of the first tools I grabbed for was In a Game of Music and Peak, those two books, because I needed to refresh myself on how to practice, because I was like, hey, I've got like a live coming up and I've only got X amount of time to like get fighting fit here. So like all this information that I'm giving you is absolutely 100%, tried and tested by myself. I'm like I'm the guinea pig. I'm the I experiment on myself, and I can safely say that if you follow the directions, then you're going to improve. There's no doubt about it. It's just the effort, isn't it? Anyway, so the takeaways, right? So path to expertise, right? You're going to move beyond naive practice. We're going to use purposeful practice. So we're still going to have goals, feedback, challenge. It's looser, it's comfy, still. We're going to reach to deliberate practice. So you're going to have a look at teachers, potentially, coaching. But if not, then you're going to have a look at and research, methods of other players. And now I'm saying this, if there was one thing that you would get from this, is just subconsciously be more interested in, when you're hearing, really famous players, try and listen to not like a specific exercise they do, but their methods and approach of how they practice and how they play, how they treat their instrument. What is their approach to music? Think more of that, and think of that, well, how can I make that into a model and then apply that to my own situation? Okay, actions. Target weakness. We don't want to be weak now, do we? We need to be strong. So one thing is, those little problems that they're like niggling away, that you might be thinking, just leave it there, can't be bothered, not today. It's like, I just want to have a nice time. That's naive practice. With deliberate practicing, you're going to assess those problems. Think of those problems when you're playing your instrument or producing a track as a crime scene, and you are the investigation team coming in. You're going to find out what the problem is, and you're going to fix it. And then we've had sort of like a breakdown of skills. So, the various skills that you can use to like overcome a problem. It's like observation, for example, micro practices. And then your feedback system. So wins, problems, and opportunities is a very, very good one. Writing things down is brilliant. But also camera, excellent. And recording yourself into a DAW, brilliant. Systematic routines, whatever you're doing needs to be a routine. We talked about that. At the end of the day, this is all to do with habits, isn't it? It's all to do with building the habit. The first main thing is that we turn up to do the thing that we're doing. That's the core thing. And like now, we're kind of finessing with that. Some quotes from Peak. So, get as close to deliberate practice as you can. It knows where it's going and how to get there. Experts see patterns novices miss. Very important. The right kind of practice over time equals improvement. And then we've got Ericsson research, so roadmap to mastery, naive, purposeful, deliberate practice, discomfort and guidance are necessary, and greatness is trainable. And there we have it. Now back to the chat, and then we can have some questions. I can have a coffee now. I'm still waking up, guys. I'm still waking up. What have I missed? I'll tell you what. Let's just check on. Has Enzo been talking to people while I've been lecturing? Distracting them. So yes, thank you. Definitely going to be a concept for all guitarists to improve. Watch. I noticed my relationship with time dramatically changes once I start wearing a watch. I've stopped wearing one since then. I think under Brian, but I meant a smartwatch that's always sending notifications. Just switch the notifications off. Everything. We're talking about smartwatches, vibrations all day. No, I agree. Right, okay, well, right. I'm at exercise 8, kick 8, but I have been having trouble memorizing the movements because my natural way of hybrid picking keeps muddling the memory waters. Right, yes. So I think what's interesting here, Enzo, is I think you're putting probably too much of an expectation on yourself to be able to like absorb as much as you can in one go. What we've got to do is you just got to take one of those exercises and just start using it. Yeah, that's it. And then when you start using it, improvising, that's how it actually goes into your subconscious. So at the minute, when we think of like the learning process, we have the front of our brain, prefrontal cortex, that's the thinking, isn't it? That's where all the modern bit. And that takes up lots and lots of energy. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to memorize the thing, but what we want to do is move it from memory into the older part of the brain, so it's just instinct, so we don't even know that we're doing it, we're just kind of doing all these muscle memories. And that's what we need to do. We need to work on that transition. Now, if you're going to overload the front of your head, trying to frustratedly kind of learn all these different kind of techniques that Brett goes through, they're not going to sink in as quick, so you just need to take one and use it. So simply, I'm not really plugged in here. For me, I just replaced the upstroke with the hybrid. Yeah. And then the other sort of more complicated stuff we'll do a lesson on it tomorrow. The other stuff kind of came later, but I'm quite unconscious. I use probably most of those moves, but I'm completely unconscious to them. I couldn't when I go back to the book now, I go, yeah, I use that. But I couldn't tell you which one exactly. I couldn't break it all down because they're all there specifically, unconsciously help me kind of get over various problems on the guitar. So just kind of taking one exercise and then using it and improvising with it. Unless I play right, I'm glad we all feel like crap. That's exactly how I feel. I don't feel 70% unless I play for 2 hours good practice. But you can feel great in a short amount of practice that accumulates. Right, there you go. I'm very excited for my practice session in the morning. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. When I started in college, I would incorporate my main 4 to 5 areas of practice into a folder and spend an even amount of minutes on each one, 4 topics, 2 hours, 30 minutes each topic, etc. Yeah. So I think that's like pretty good as well. But I think one problem is when you have these very strict guidelines and something gets in the way and it throws you off, then it can have a negative impact. So one of the things we've got to build into our practice and our habits is flexibility, because actually as a professional musician, falling off and missing something and not doing it, how we actually get back up into the game is as important as the practice and everything else, you know. So do bear that in mind. I mean, one of the things that really, really helped me was just that ability that if I have a knockback or a setback, I just get back up again and continue, and that's the important thing. It's like how efficiently we get back up and into the game. That's important. So one way to sort of avoid that is just to make sure that you understand that the goals that you're setting can change, okay? They're constantly modifying. It's not like an absolutely rigid thing. Okay. And sometimes when you're trying to reach a goal, you can become disinterested in it. And maybe that's as far as you go at that point with that, because something else comes along that interests you. And I think what we have to do is our brains will tell us that it's subconsciously interested in different aspects of music. Because we're solving, creative problems. It's all to do with our connection to the world. So, I might be doing something like picking exercises, right? Which is a very mechanical thing. And then something to do with harmony will come along that gets my attention. And then I'll just automatically, I'll not really question that. I'll just then move into the thing that interests me because I've got more energy to do it. So like playing based on your interests, I think like is a really, really good thing to do. Because you get a lot of energy, you're going to want to keep coming back to that. When you're genuinely fascinated with something, you get a lot of sort of mental leverage from that. And what we want to do is make our practice sessions as fun and as interesting as we possibly can. It's changed practice-wise and in the last 20 years because I'm more experienced. But it's fascinating how easy it is to fall into bad habits, yeah. %100. So, anybody got any questions? I'm ending the stream slightly earlier because I've got an appointment I need to get there. I've got to get ready for it. I don't walk about with this top on all day, believe it or not. I have to change it. So, anybody want to talk about anything based on habits and stuff like that? Look, Enzo, you've got right. Enzo, you've got license for typos. License for typos. You're fine. So if everybody can hit the thumbs up, that would be absolutely amazing. It's not a competition, Enzo. So I don't know. Oh, it's nice just to relax after that. After doing a lecture. What a thing to do. Like, just get out of bed and then get a load of slides up. Love you, Tim. Lovely. My wife is not happy. We have to go to Orlando in the morning, and I've been a joker. Kidding, by the way. Okay. Right. Thanks, Tim. I've been reviewing tomorrow. I review in the morning prior as part of my practice. Absolutely excellent. Yeah, so I want to hear all the positives, like how, so far into week. Well, we've just had week 1 of habits, haven't we? So I'd like to hear all the positive things. If you've just come on, don't worry about it. Just watch back on a few of the videos, get the gist, and you'll soon be in the game. But the other thing I'd like to say, if there's a couple of things. So, firstly, we've got the Patreon site. So if you want to go to the Patreon, link should be in the description. You can check me out there. If you want to support this channel, it's $4 a month, but you can join absolutely free. But it's the 3 dots. You got to push the 3 dots, and then you can join free. If you want to pay the $4, so I'm just running with this for the next year. Every Monday, we're going to be doing something like this, and I think Monday is a great time to do this, isn't it? It gets us fired up for the week, okay, and thinking about, how we are going to make progress and what have you. So that's the first thing, Patreon, $4. Secondly, if you would like, you want to do something with your music career, you're not sure how to move it forward, basically you can book in for a one-to-one coaching session with me, and all you got to do is just email me. And it's $75 for the hour. And if anybody is wanting a guitar lesson, then that is also the same price for an hour. And then the other thing is if you want to join a coaching group, which is the flagship thing of this, you'd be in a group of 4 people. I've reduced it a little bit. So we've got basically per month it's $200, and you get 2 hours every week with me in a room taking you through music writing activities that will give you insight and exponentially develop you. I've never had to refund anybody. However, if the coaching was not for you, okay, and you freak out about it, I'll just give you your money back after a month if you just can't do it, if it's like really bothering you. Then I can just refund the money, that's not a problem. But I strongly suggest that if you're sitting there and you're wanting to have a regular, music making practice, and you want to be finishing music and you want to be releasing music, then definitely joining a coaching group is the way forward for that, because that will all happen. It's a given, and it can be a way that you make music. You've got this 2-hour checkpoint every week. So it's, it lights a fire under your ass. Unbelievable. So have a think about that. So those are a couple of 3 ways I can help you. Okay. So tomorrow morning, as Enzo has been talking about hybrid picking, we're going to have a look at hybrid picking in the style of Brett Garsted. How about that? So I'll do a bit of that tomorrow, and you can see how I apply it and what have you. And just have your questions for hybrid picking tomorrow at the ready. And, because at the end of the day, that's how we'll probably make the most progress, is actually asking questions. And that way we can make whatever we're learning more specific to our situation. So just bear that in mind. All right, so I need to head off now, guys, and it's been great. Thank you for coming along and listening to me. Always a pleasure. And I'll see you tomorrow morning for a guitar lesson. So bring your guitars, all right? Catch you later. End.